How do these extremely wealthy trillionaires like the Rothschilds, the Cronenbergs, stay in power for hundreds of years? Because they know something that you don't know. And they know people that you don't know. So if you want to make it up there, what you need to do, know things, and two, know people. I found the secret to why the British Empire actually became rich. They made a whole manual, the first ever sales manual, business manual, on everything it takes for people to get rich. Everything that the British knew about sales, about business, they wrote it down, put it into a book, and then for the next 150 years, no one made a sales book since. They didn't even try. There was no business book. And after years of searching the dark web, after doing questionable illegal activity, I have it right here. And I read the entire thing, and I'm about to share it with you for free. Now, the reason I set up this channel is not because I'm a super nice, great, awesome person, even though I am. It's mainly because I want to create a community, an environment of rich, famous, successful people. So I can talk to other successful people, because who you know is everything. And honestly, a lot of people don't become successful because of their inner circle. I already have a marketing company and I can do fine without this channel, but I just want to hit the next level and just basically meet not millionaires, but billionaires. Okay, so this book, it took me a while to read. It's extremely difficult to read. It's annoying to read. But after reading it, I've basically written down every single important piece of information, and we're just gonna go over that. So without further ado, let's get into it. The introduction of the book, it essentially goes over the 3 things that make you a tradesman, a businessman. Number 1, you need to have a wide general knowledge of the entire business atmosphere. Number 2, you need to have a specific, very strong knowledge of your niche. You need to know the ins and outs of everything that you do in your business. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, because they just kind of stay at surface level. But they need to go deep. They need to know all the suppliers. They need to know all of the potential customers. They need to know the mistakes that bigger companies have made, etc. And number 3, this one is the most important. Every single business owner has known this for the last 300, 400 years. You need to take every single form of payment possible. 300 years ago, you know what the English would do? They would take the francs, they would take the lira, they would take the pounds, they would take the ruble, they would take every single method. They would take silver, they would take gold. Because it's always a difference between getting paid and not getting paid. Today, it's not even difficult. Today, all you need, open up a Wise, a PayPal, a Cash App, a Zelle, and maybe a Venmo. And obviously crypto. I've gotten paid in crypto, I've gotten paid through the other 5. It's so much better than telling someone, oh sorry, I didn't set up a Venmo. If you can't have Venmo, use your friend's Venmo. Give him 2%. Like, there's so many things you can do. Even 300 years ago, they understood this. But that's the introduction. It's very basic so far, but as we get further into this book, it kind of goes way deeper into it. Chapter 1, preparations. How do you prepare for a business? What do you need before you start a business? Well, he kind of lays this out pretty easily for us. So essentially what your business needs, number 1, you need to know the true value of your products. How much is it worth? Spy on your competitors. Try to work for them and then quit like 2 weeks later after finding out what you need to know. Do whatever it takes to find out what the true value of something is. Learn about all the suppliers, or at least a couple of suppliers, to know you're not being cheated, and figure out the best ways of distributing your products. What he says is a businessman needs to get good judgment, because if you are selling any item or service, you need to be able to determine if it's good or bad. If you're selling jewelry, you need to know if it's good or bad jewelry. If you're selling tires, you need to know if the tires are good or bad. So just lock in for like a month, get very good at it, and then you can start $1 million business. That's how to start like an actual business. Now, if you're trying to dropship or do something that's a little sus, honestly, it's not worth it because you can make way more money by just day trading at that point. But if you want to start like a real business, you need to become an expert at what you're selling. You absolutely need to. Another thing, most small business owners, they get molested because they just don't take track of their profit margins. They think they're doing well. They think, oh, I made 5K. And then when you look at their sales, when you look at their expenses, when you look at taxes, when you look at everything else, they're actually making like a McDonald's wage. They're not keeping track of their income. They're not keeping track of their expenses. So you need to also know, obviously, what are your actual expenses? When you get paid 10 grand, how much is that worth? So he goes over that. It's pretty simple. He also talks about another thing, which is mentors. I think everyone knows this. You can't learn rocket science by yourself. You can't learn sales by yourself. You need to read books. You need to get a mentor. You need to become exquisite at what you do. And the only way to excel is to be around other people that excelled. Not Microsoft excelled, but yeah. All right, so chapter 1, I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. He lays a very solid foundation, which is obviously you need to become an expert at what you do. You need to know your sales system. You need to know your marketing system. It doesn't mean spend a year learning without doing anything. You can learn as you do it, but you need a super critical eye. Again, this is the first book ever on sales, okay? I'm laying down the foundation so that next video, you actually understand what I'm going over. Chapter 2 is writing letters. This is actually something that a lot of people don't know. If you're within the range of like 100 to 110, 120 IQ, you're gonna feel threatened by people that are smarter than you. And what a lot of people do when they're around other rich people, when they're around like people they perceive as smart, they're gonna purposely try to talk in a way that makes them look better than the other person. What he says is, if you prefer writing harangues, complimenting people, you should be a poet. No one cares about you when you ask how they're doing. Yeah, no one cares. And no one wants you to use verbose, pedantic language. If you're trying to do a sale, simplicity is key. And every single business owner knows this. They don't want to talk to somebody where when they open up your email address or your text message, they have to read like 6 paragraphs. The simpler, the better. And it's the same with sales. Every single time you do sales, remember, you want to keep it as short and concise as possible. They found this out 300 years ago. The only difference now than 300 years ago is a lot of people can't write eloquently even if they wanted to. Like, don't say type because you want to seem more chill with your client. Write professionally. But if you're talking to a Chinese supplier, or if you're talking to somebody who doesn't read, or if you're talking to somebody who doesn't care about this kind of stuff, don't use words like paramount. Don't use words like serendipitous. Just talk normally, okay? Chapter 3, know the slang and proprieties of your clients. What that means, talk like who you're talking with. If you're talking to somebody, a potential client, and they want to talk about sports and girls, you're not gonna talk about the political, socioeconomic state of the world. That's what he says, generally. You need to know the terminology of your suppliers and customers. If you're selling jewelry, you need to know what zirconium is. You need to know what moissanite is. If you're selling tires, you need to know the specific tire material. Whatever it is, you need to become super aware with that because you want to show them that you're just as good as them. You don't want to show them, oh, I'm better than you, but you want to show a deep understanding of the topic so that they can trust you. That goes for suppliers and for clients. Another really important piece of advice he gives is you need to talk to other business owners, obviously, but they need to be business owners that are in different markets, different industries. Why do you say that? If I'm selling carpets, why do I need to know like someone that sells vases? Let's say in pottery, there is a brand new AI system that helps you find clients that are over $500,000 yearly that they have to spend on you, or something like that. If pottery is the first industry that has access to this AI model, if you know a guy that has it and you're like a lawyer, you can take that system and use it on your business. You can learn from different industries and use it on your own. That is the secret. That is how businesses grow. No one just comes like this with an idea, very rarely. They always take from existing competitors and implement it on their own business. Steve Jobs did the same thing. He wasn't the first to make a phone. He took what existed and implemented his own vision into it multiple times. So you need to know who your competitors are, what they're doing, what systems they have, and you need to implement them for your own thing. You cannot isolate yourself by either only being with people in your industry, and you cannot isolate yourself by just not talking to anyone, because you're just gonna stagnate. You're not gonna be as successful. There's entire networks of very rich people that work together, and they're competing with you, someone who's by themselves. Who's gonna win? Unless you have a network and a strong team, you are going to be molested. Chapter 4, acquainting yourself with business in general. What does that mean? Basically, he says that you need to be familiar with everything to do with business. You need to know how email marketing works. You need to know how funnels work. You need to know how sales systems work, how websites work. You need to have a general knowledge of all of it. At least a general knowledge. Otherwise, you're just not gonna have a good eye for what's right and what isn't. He says that you need to know where everything is manufactured and have a general understanding to have a foundation to excel in whatever business you do. Once you become very good at one business, other than the specific industry secrets, you can excel in every business. And if you have a big network and you know a lot of people with a lot of secrets, it's like impossible to fail. Now, this next piece of information, this is actually insane because a lot of people mess up on this. Like 99% of people, once they get to a certain point, they mess up on this. A tradesman must only spend time with other tradesmen to sharpen his knowledge. State news and politics are not worth his time. You need to be optimizing your free time and leisure to learn how to buy and sell. If you focus on nothing but your business, like a horse tied to a post, you are bound to success. Zebras try to be black and white at the same time, and they're useless. You can't even ride a zebra. But if you lock in and go all black or all white, as in all on one business, it's gonna be impossible to fail. Your dreams are gonna start being about how to grow that business. Until you're ready for the next step of life, as in transitioning from business to political leader, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but until you're ready to transition from business to politics, you shouldn't spend your time worrying about politics, because that's not gonna make you money. It doesn't affect you. Nothing that happens can make you money. Nothing that isn't going to affect your business should affect you at all. Another tip he says, quote, "Do not spend time with broke, stupid losers, or you will become one." He doesn't say that verbatim, but he literally says, do not skip work to socialize. Your friends, they will slow you down. If you have friends that are not going where you need to be, you are getting molested by them. They are stealing your life force. They are stealing your energy from you. And honestly, if you're an exceptional person and your environment isn't, then you're going to become average. That's just the truth. And too many people fail at following this. This was said 300 years ago, and people will still do this stuff. If you do have desires that aren't business, like your passion is politics or being an artist, it's perfectly acceptable to transition into that later in life. But right now, until you have your first million, just $1 million, You need to be fully focused on the business because there's nothing else that matters. You need to get $1 million first. Chapter 5, diligence in business. People need to see you in your business. They need to know that you are the man that they can rely on, or woman, I guess. The reason I started this channel is because I work 12 hours a day and I have nothing to show for it other than a lot of money and connections and the company and a lot of skills. But a YouTube channel, a social media platform would benefit way more. And you as a business owner, as a marketer, as whatever, any company that you're trying to grow, it needs to be visible and present. People need to see you on your business working. They need to associate whatever product that you're selling with you. In the book, he says, obviously, don't be lazy. In the past, you needed to work like 20 years of your life every single day to be rich and successful and to make it. Now you need to work maybe like 4 years of your life and you're set for life. So it's way easier than it used to be, but you still have to be extremely motivated. You still have to work like your ass off. And that's what he says. You need to work hard. Next, he says, do a ritual opening your shop. You need a specific routine of how you do things. Routines make things faster. You don't want to start every single day thinking about what you're going to do. So in the past, they would have to do a physical shop. They'd have to open it up. They'd have to clean it. They'd have to store the shelves, whatever. Today, all a routine is a system. It's a process of how your staff are going to work. How are you going to systemize your company? And now with how business has advanced, how organized we can make it, you don't have to do a 2-hour routine every single day on how you open your business, but you do need a system. You do need a process. And that system is essentially what your staff is going to follow. Your AI systems are going to follow. You need to set up an extremely organized system for your business. So anybody in the company always knows exactly what to do. Unless their job is like to think of new ideas, they need to always have exactly the next steps outlined. And that's essentially what he said in the book. And that's what I've been doing for basically like, I don't know, the last 6 months, 8 months. Before even reading the book, I realized that. And it's so much more helpful to just remove any space where somebody can think, to just action, 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 action. The next part he says is actually insane. Just listen. He says, your life as a man is a measurement of allotted time. 3 specific ways that you measure your time. There's eat, sleep, and rest. That's your, primal desires. That's your primal needs. You don't live without it. There's your religious duties. So that's going to church, that's prayer, charity work, whatever you do. And number 3, there's work, your career. Your entire life is composed of these 3 things. And anything that's outside of those 3 things needs to be avoided. Your leisure needs to still include something that benefits those 3. And your free time, you need to either be doing something that's benefiting your faith or your job or your health. He says, do not put responsibility over others. You need to balance. Honestly, I put a lot of responsibility on work and I've kind of been neglecting the others. Like I'm not sleeping enough. I'm not going to church every Sunday, unfortunately. You should be doing that. And he says that you need to follow your duty. There's a place and time for all. Next, he says, he that loves pleasure is a poor man. Which is true. If you enjoy pleasure, if you enjoy having fun, you are destined to being broke for the rest of your life. If you have fun in having fun, if like on a random Saturday, you would rather go skiing than work, if you would rather spend time, knitting or watching Family Guy funny moments instead of getting work done, you're going to be poor forever. If you don't walk by a homeless person and pretend to give them money and then laugh at them He says that you're gonna be poor forever. Like, you need to be that motivated. You need to be that disciplined. Okay, he doesn't say that last part, but he essentially says that you need to love work. You can't be the type of guy that just enjoys life for the sake of life, enjoys having fun, because other people are going to surpass you. Then he says you should delight in your trade. I disagree. I think it doesn't matter if you like what you do, you just gotta do it. And yeah, that's chapter 6. Essentially, he says you need to work extremely hard and you need to basically prioritize all your time around your business. So far, this is just like 1/4 of the book. And this is like a lot of still surface level stuff, but a lot of gems too, a lot of gems. Like, write this down, think about it, because especially if you're young, especially if you don't have business advice, this will save you a lot of time. The stuff about like how you should treat your staff, that's crazy. Number 6, do not overtrade. Do not trade beyond stock. Today, that is the worst advice ever. Today, with how fast these suppliers can be, with how fast international trade is, you need to basically 90% of the time sell more than you can provide, and then figure out how to provide it as soon as you sell it, especially if you're a small business. And worst case scenario, if you cannot provide that service, all you have to do is offer them a discount and say, sorry, we're late, we're gonna bring it later. That's literally all you have to do. 90% of the time, they're going to say, oh great, a discount. And you can throw in like an extra thing. So like if you're marketing, you could throw in extra work for like a week or whatever you're providing. So you need to always actually do the opposite of what he said. That's the first thing that he said, which is kind of wrong. And then he says, don't give too much credit when you're starting out because people will screw you over. Yeah, obviously be careful. Don't just do work for free. And then he says, do not buy more than you can sell, have just enough stock. Yeah, obviously. He says, count credit differently than cash. Assume people will not pay you with punctuality. That's facts. I've had some of my best clients, they've taken me like an extra month or 2 or even 3 months, and they're not bad people. They just didn't have the money to pay me because I charged them a lot of money, but they still paid it. You can't even get mad at people for that. You can't get too upset. As a small business, you're going to just have to deal with that. Even a medium business, unless you're dealing with these huge corporations or large businesses, there are events, supernatural events, maybe they have some issues in their industry. You just have to take into account. Some people are not gonna pay you and you just gotta deal with it. But yeah, chapter 6, pretty basic stuff. Never overstock, it's better to be understocked, and assume people won't pay you. Chapter 7, this is the best piece of advice that a lot of really, really rich people have followed. It basically got them to where they need to be. He says, on being bankrupt, the law is favorable to the bankrupt. Take personal responsibility, find bankruptcy help as early as you can. Reputation is important, be honest. So think about what he said 300 years ago and how it applies to today. Bankruptcy is like, no one even cares if you're bankrupt anymore. It's better to be $1 billion in debt than to have $0. People like Donald Trump have lost all of their money time and time again, and nobody cares because they just made it back. If you can lose everything, you can get it all back. You just have to get to the point where you have something you could lose. So don't be worried about taking too much risk, about losing it all again. Because once you learn the fundamental principles, once you make those strong connections, you can easily make back your money. And he said that 300 years ago in England. That was in the 1700s he said that. This was like right when America first started as a country. Think of how much time has passed. This was like before Abraham Lincoln, when you could still buy people, he said this. Chapter 8, the ruins of tradesmen and modern day business owners. He says that you need to organize everything in your shop very, very well. You need to know the dimensions of everything and measure everything. And you need to basically find out strategically the best way to organize and place everything in your shop to the T. Yeah, that makes sense. But how does that apply today? When you set up your website, do not think about it as, oh, this looks good, I'll do this. Oh, this looks good, I'll do this. Set up your website in a way where you think, what do other people say I should do for my website? Strategically speaking, what is going to encourage people to press this button? What do billion-dollar companies do, and how can I replicate that? Marketing has went from, I feel like this works, to mathematically determining what works and what doesn't. When you're setting up your funnels, your email systems, your website, every single process, you need to ask yourself, why am I doing it like this, and is there a better way? 300 years ago, the best salesmen, the merchants, figured out the same thing. And they're the ones that created generational wealth. He says, always give people the option to buy something new and in fashion. Sort it well so people know where to buy. Yeah, obviously. Put it at the front of your website. Now, this is probably my favorite part of the book. He says, I once heard of a shopkeeper that behaved himself thus to such an extreme that when he was provoked by the impertinence of his customers, he would go upstairs and beat his wife, kick his children around like dogs, and be as furious for 2 or 3 minutes. And when the heat was over, he would sit down, cry faster than the children he had abused, and then after the fit was over, he would go downstairs into the shop again and be as humble, as courteous, and calm as any man would ever. He was a good business owner. He's literally me. No, he's not, but you know, like you need to have that kind of mindset without beating your wife and kids. But you need to, you know, who you are behind closed doors to your customers should always generally be different if you have that rage. Your anger and rage should be hidden behind closed doors. Remain amicable to their faces. If you don't like somebody and they're a customer of yours, yeah, do what you gotta do. Ideally, don't beat your wife and kids, but if you must, do it upstairs, do it in the... No, don't do it. And then he says, you are a servant to your customers, do not insult them. Yeah, that's true. Chapter 9, more ruins of tradesmen. Pleasures and diversions, especially innocent ones, will murder you and hang you in public. Pleasures that interfere with your calling are criminal. Do not learn equestrianism, dog language, or any hobby that distracts you from your purpose, your calling in life. If you're learning Spanish, if you're knitting, if you're doing any hobby that's actually dividing you from where you need to be, you are killing yourself. Do not do that. Your free time needs to correlate with where you need to be. It doesn't have to be one-to-one. You can read a book on how to speak eloquently, and that'll help you in your business. But you can't read a book about how to make the best pina colada smoothies if you're in the oil business. It's a waste of your time. You either improve yourself in regards to business, or you suffer the consequences of being useless. All business neglected is business lost. All business neglected is business lost. And then one of the best things that he says that a lot of people mess up on, once you start hiring your staff, you might want to neglect your business, thinking, oh, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, I can relax. That's the biggest trap that business owners fall into. A man who leaves his business to his servants shows his heart is not in the business. Make it clear to your staff, but also to your clients, that you're physically there every single day, that this is your life. Just as you are willing to invest your life into the business, your staff and servants will as well, and so will your customers invest thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Then he says, your broke friends are vipers. Pleasure is bait to the mind. Your mind should command your body, not the other way around. Any innocent diversion is still a diversion. Not because of the activity, but in the time it takes and the time it robs you from. You can't go skiing in your free time if you're not rich. If you want to be up there, you can't just spend your time doing that. It's robbing you of the limited amount of time you have. Essentially, your time is worth more than money. Just because something is free, you're going to think that it doesn't matter that you're spending your time there. Your time is so much more important. For everybody, there is a visible juxtaposition between the things we may do and the things we must do. Projects and adventures that promise a lot ensnare the avaricious tradesman. There's bait everywhere to slow you down. If you are a caterpillar and every caterpillar around you wants to turn into a moth, but you want to be a butterfly, you absolutely cannot expect them to think the same way as you and to spend their time the same way as you. And then he says, do not waste time on money or pleasure. One last thing he says in this chapter is the biggest loss of improper leisure is the acquaintanceship of inept companions who do not bring them further. Your broke friends want you to be a moth, but you need to be a butterfly. What he's saying is leisure hours must be spent as time to build your skill sets. All right, chapter 10, extravagant living. Now this is for when you go from $0 to $10,000, $20,000. He says, clear and visible extravagances are easy to notice, but difficult to avoid. There is a silent war going between innocent and exuberant pleasure. It's a negligence of the business. If you spend a lot of money on opulent activities and you're broke and you don't put it into the actual business. He says immoderate expenses are a pestilence on businessmen. It's a disease. Businessmen want to look rich, so they give off a rich vibe. Technically, if you're in anything to do with info products, teaching other people how to make money, you're financially motivated to pretend that you're rich. You know, why do all these gurus, trading gurus, pretend that they're rich? Because they're selling you a lifestyle. So that's a situation where I actually encourage my clients, show people that you have a Rolex, show people you have extra money, because you want your clients to know that you have money, because you're selling them a dream of having even more money. But if you're not actually selling an info product, you have no reason to spend money on stupid stuff like diamonds or jewelry or whatever. That's rapper behavior. They see something shiny and they buy it. I've been a victim to spending a lot of money on stupid stuff, but the best investment of your money is into assets that will make you more money and on connections, building your network. He says expensive living can be housekeeping, dressing and clothing, your company, like your friends, your equipment. Mortify those with the least tincture of frugality. I kind of disagree because it's so easy to make money. It's okay to spend some of it. You should spend money on companies, especially if they're gonna help you get to where you need to be. You need to put yourself in those positions. Like, I'm only where I'm at because I've invested so much time on building my network of, you know, other people in the space. The next part of this chapter is about lying to your wife. Should you lie to your wife? Now, it really depends on the topic, but generally, he says you need to acquaint your wife with the details of your circumstances, which means if you don't have a lot of money, don't tell your wife that you have a lot of money, because that facade is going to break you. It's gonna break your relationship, break the trust. He says don't let her run on ignorance. Honestly, I kind of disagree, because if you are rich, and if you're dating a woman that is dating you because you're rich, number one, you made a terrible mistake. You're not gonna be in a happy relationship unless you lock in. And number two, if you tell her you're broke, she's going to leave you immediately. And hopefully you're not married, because she's gonna take half of your stuff. Lie to your wife. If she's going to leave you when you're broke, don't tell her you're broke and just figure your way out of it. The next part of this chapter is on networking. Now, I had a friend, actually. He went to clubs 3 times a week while not making a lot of money, like barely scraping by. And he says, well, LeBron James goes to clubs and LeBron James is so successful. He's so ambitious and he still has time to go to clubs. But you cannot be networking with people all the way up here or all the way even here if you're at the very bottom, because you're going to feel like you accomplished something when you're not. And spending time with people is not enough. You need to sit down and do it. You need to sit down and learn and figure it out. It's a whole equation. And being in networks, that's only a small part of it. Networking with people, it can be helpful when you actually start to get some motion. But other than that, all time spent outside of your business is business lost. You need to be representing your work and your business by being presently there, by being available. Otherwise, you're gonna miss an opportunity. He says, a pleasure that's great for others is a disease. It's a snare for young businessmen. A tradesman's pleasure, especially a young one, should only be business. Your only pleasure is business until you make it. His companions, books. Now, I don't agree with that. I think your companions should be actual people. Don't spend time with people all the way up here if you're at nothing. You should get a little bit of motion going. Chapter 11, marriage. This is actually like the best piece of advice I've gotten since I had a guy tell me to invest in Bitcoin like 6 years ago. He says they should not wed before they spend. This is on marriage. He says that you should not have a woman because they cause problems and spend your money. In the best case scenario, you have a woman that causes no problems but still spends your money. This next line is actually crazy game. He says, men are not undone by good women, but the fact that he chose her so early, even a perfect one, can be a wrong person for this juncture, this moment of time. What he's saying is there's so many perfect women out there. The first perfect woman you meet, even if she seems perfect, she's probably not, and there's more of them. And you shouldn't tarnish your whole business and income just for one girl. Now, in a modern sense today, does this apply? I mean, now we have women that are making a lot of money too. And, some of them might be doing it in a super ethical, whatever way, like not OnlyFans or something. So yeah, if you can find a hardworking woman who doesn't cause problems and you can work together on your business, congratulations, you're a super lucky guy. Me personally though, I have not found anybody like that and none of my friends have. But maybe you got lucky. On average, you're not meeting somebody who's perfect, who's gonna make money with you. On average, you're not rich already. Getting into a relationship is either going to give you money or problems. Chapter 12, leaving your business to servants. Basically, what they had servants in the past as, today they're called staff, employees, obviously. He says, good servants will become so good and influential that they will take over and steal your company from you. If the fame of the business depends on the servant, the business will be dangerous if it is not clear that he is a servant and you are the master. The greater the reputation a servant has in the business, the greater risk that you have. Do not let them usurp your business. The only way to prevent this is a master that is visibly as diligent as the servant who serves the master. He says, never be less capable than your servant. Let the servant work in the shop while you work on the shop. We've all heard something similar. This was first said 300 years ago, first written in ink. But what he's saying is, unless your servant is clearly working for you, they know exactly what their purpose is, and they don't feel like they're doing everything for you, they will usurp you. They're gonna take your business from you. Make sure you're not hiring people that wanna start a competitive business. One of my very good friends, and the way he learned how to start his company was just by working for a competitor and figuring out the exact inner workings. And he just took the whole structure, made his own company. Now he's making like 300, 400K a year. So today, does that apply? Kind of. It's not as strict because most businesses have been done already. And if you're doing a business that isn't extremely unique, it's not about the system of the business, but the people that are in charge. And unless he's just gonna take your entire staff and steal them from you, You shouldn't be too worried. What I do is I've started giving my staff a percentage of the total profit the company makes, so everybody feels like they're an owner and not an employee. And that's been working well for me. And essentially, as you grow, you want to make every single high non-replaceable person on your staff, because 20% of $1 million is still way more than 100% of 10K, of 20K. And starting out on your first business, everything you do is just about the first $1 million. And then you can work on other stuff, your passion, whatever, but you just need $1 million in the bank account. He says there's a difference between trusting your servant in your business and leaving your business to him. You run a risk losing everything to your servant if you leave the business to him. The further you work, the more you start to realize every person you work with, two types of people. You can either work with someone that you can trust or trust to do a good job. Two different things. One person you can give very important things to, another person you can trust to do very important things well. Very different things. For example, can you give someone access to all of your accounting information without them screwing over? Some people you can give them access to it, they're gonna do a horrible job. Other people you can give them access to a project, a very difficult project, they're gonna do the project, but you can't give them access to sensitive information. And the further you get up, the more you're gonna realize that distinction and realize you need to find somebody who matches both people. That's the kind of people that's going to make you actually scale. He says you need a company to have an environment where people can grow and fulfill their passions and ideals. Now this next part, when I read it, I felt like I just unlocked my third eye. I didn't even know what to do at that point. He says, idle employees are seldom honest ones. Think about it logically. If they are getting paid to work for you and they're not working hard, they are stealing money from you. They're getting paid to do something and they're not doing it. They're stealing your time. They're stealing your money, and they're likely to steal from your shop as well. It's so easy for someone to steal from you or screw you over, and you won't notice until it's too late. Once a master is gone with supervision, all a servant has to do is answer to his conscience. Like, I wish I knew this earlier. There were so many times I was working with someone. He was okay. He did a good job, but he was kind of sloppy, or he was kind of late, or kind of idle, inept. If they're not doing a good job, they're literally stealing money from you. Because you need to think, the time it takes to fix their mistakes, the time it takes to manage them, the time it takes to have somebody else trained specifically for their mistakes, and the time it takes to make up for emergencies where he keeps making those mistakes. It is totally reasonable to crash out on someone that's not pulling their weight. If you're a business owner, lazy people are stealing your money. On training your staff, he says, masters do not typically take on a mentorship or father figure to their employees. They do not teach them about morals, God, or take an interest in their soul. And because of that, they feel no connection. Servants are typically wild and ungovernable, and many do not act from conscience or care for their master's interests. So he said this 300 years ago in England, when it was a religious country. And now we live in the 21st century, where a lot of people are atheist, or they're spiritual, or they don't believe in God, and they have no reason not to lie to you. The worst part is, if someone's an atheist and they're extremely intelligent, they don't even have to follow any set of morals, because they can just justify everything by thinking, God isn't real, there's no consequence to my actions, I'm going to only do things in the most strategic way possible. These kinds of business partners, they're not sociopaths, but they are specifically people that have mentally convinced themselves it's okay to do things purely because God isn't real. The further you go, most people in business are like this. Like, they're nice, they're gonna make you a lot of money, but you're going to get tied up in some gross business deals. Anyways, he says strict organized rules for servants solve this issue, inside of the company and outside of the company. He says your servants need to be like a family. You know how HR and all that, they always talk about like, our company is a family. And you know, a lot of businesses, they set up these meetings or whatever where they try to increase the group cohesion and make sure that everyone's nice and whatever. That's for a specific reason. Every single person on the company needs to feel like they're connected, needs to feel guilt if they decide to leave or if they decide to do something bad. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of time with your staff. You're going to be spending a lot of time with the people you work with. And it needs to have that kind of connection. He says each servant should not be able to boast that they are more trusted than another. So you shouldn't pick favorites. It should literally be like a family. He says morals are important. It is paramount that servants are not entrepreneur-minded, that they will not leave on their own when you're absent. Essentially, you should be able to trust people that you work with. Morally too. Morality is an important thing. You can predict people's behavior based on their past, obviously. So if their past or if their mindset is atheist, they don't believe in God, they don't have any morals, they don't have a history of any morals, why would you ever hire someone like that? Next, chapter 13, connections with debtors. And basically what that means is you shouldn't think that you're always poised for success. It's pretty basic, but a lot of people are just straight up, So even if someone's broke, even if they don't deserve your attention, still be nice to them. Because one day, who knows, maybe you need to work with them. One sec. Yeah, Mom? I'm being too loud? Okay.
Let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. Now, what does that mean? What this means, you want to show mercy on your fellow tradesmen in times of distress. Now, what are times of distress? I mean, if someone is helping you out, it's very easy to help them out as well. If you don't like someone because they're poor, they're ugly, they're annoying, they smell, you still have to work with them, because your primary objective as a tradesman is to generate revenue. And because we're all Christians here, because we all believe in God, you must help people even when they don't deserve it. Because God is real and he will reward you for doing so. And because we're supposed to be good people. That's what chapter 13 says. Remember, this was written in the 1700s. Nowadays, a lot of people are far more cruel. You have to work around that. Don't make friends with people who are greedy, who are perfidious, avaricious. You don't want these kinds of people in your circle. Chapter 14 is specifically about the different types of trade. It's really boring. He talks about the definition and scope, the unique scale and efficiency, transportation and logistics, credit and retail networks. This is very interesting stuff if you're a tradesman in the 1700s, but we don't need that. Now, chapter 15. This is where it gets interesting. He says, breaking a promise does not mean you're lying. As a businessman, this is what they don't tell you. What does that mean? Breaking a promise isn't lying. Now, if your original intent at the time of creating that promise was honesty, if you wanted to fulfill that promise and something got in the way, that does not count as breaking aforementioned promise. Lying only occurs when a promise was made intentionally. Lying only occurs with a premonition of deceit. When you're lying, thinking you're going to steal from someone else. If you're lying and something happens, you can't feel guilty. That's what he says. He says, ideally, payment promises need to include conditions like God willing or if possible. So basically, he's telling you spend money you don't have, assume that you'll have the money later. And it's true. You're competing with billionaires who have unlimited money. Spend every single cent you have on growing your business and on obviously buying jewelry, but generally it should be on your business. He says promises are made only as a last resort. As a last resort, you ever want to guarantee something. I don't even know if I should say this, but I know a lot of high-ticket people that work with just this mindset. They will tell you something, get you to do it, and they will pay you a month from now. Is this the right thing to do? No. Do they pay me? Yes. Am I happy? Yes. And if you need to grow, if you need to get somewhere, sometimes you need to make difficult choices. Sometimes you need to be $400,000 in debt to make a couple thousand extra dollars. Chapter 16, business partnerships. He says you generally should not make business partnerships because chances are, if you're watching this video, you have so much free time, your friends have this much free time as well. And what that means, you and your friends are poor as f***. And what do poor friends have in common? They are lazy. What do lazy people have in common? They don't get done. You should not create partnerships with your friends because your friends will likely be as stupid and as lazy as you. Do not rely on people that are as stupid and lazy as you. If you're broke, your friends are broke too. He says there are many businesses that rely on a lot of trade, a lot of contingencies. There's a lot of operational hazards that come into play. When you add someone else that you fully rely on, you're just doubling your risk. Only partner with people that you can truly trust with your money and with your life, because their work is your life. And even worse, if your partner is capable, if they are strong, let's say you work with someone who's strong, capable, intelligent, they have a chance of taking over your entire business, ripping it from you, ripping your baby from you. Except you can just pop out another baby, another business. No one has time to do that. And they're gonna steal your business from you. That's what he says. He says, if your business partner is smart and intelligent and better than you at what you do, you are basically a slave to them, hoping that they're nice enough to keep working with you. He says the only time you can ever have a partnership with somebody is if you are the daddy and they are the If you can tell them what to do and they will listen, if they are younger than you and they know that they are your slave. That's a f***ed up way to say it. I hope the wrong people don't see this, but they need to know that without you, the operation doesn't work. That's the only way you can have a 50-50 partner. He says partners can be knavish towards each other. Next, he also says your partners should always be under you, beneath you. Not intelligently, but operationally, in dividends and stocks. You don't want to be voted out, all this basic stuff, you know that. Chapter 17, he talks about counterfeit money, he talks about deception and all that. And with chapter 18, he says there is a deception with a lot of goods. When you're buying something, you need to be so good at determining the quality. He then criticizes society. This is in the 1700s. He has this to say about society. He says most salesmen are liars, and most people who buy are also liars. People will over-exaggerate, under-exaggerate, and there's nothing you can really do about it. He says, don't hate the player, hate the game. So if you want to actually make money, you need to over-exaggerate everything. If you're buying from something, under-exaggerate the price. Tell them, oh, this is diamonds? Well, I only need diamonds from blood children in Africa. It's not good enough. If you're selling something, oh, you don't like blood diamonds? Well, our diamonds are, made in labs. There's no blood on it. You want to flip the switch. You always want to have the upper hand. Always either exaggerate or under-exaggerate. Basic stuff. Lastly, now this was a part on chapter 17, 18, and 19. He says there's so much normalization of improper sales practices and selling products that shouldn't be sold. You can make so much money, like ridiculous amounts of money, by just locking in for a couple of years, especially now. If you are personally doing something that you know is immoral, like selling pictures of your toes or whatever, or working with people that should be publicly executed, those kinds of people, you're doing a disservice to yourself. And when you die, you will get punished for that. And, if I get rich enough, I'm going to personally come after you and punish you for that. Like, I want to have enough money so I can just go around people. But, yeah, he says, don't do that. Don't do anything unethical, obviously. And, yeah, fraudulent activities, they're normalized. People do it, but it's a big yikes. Like, it's a Chungus disrespect moment. Lastly, chapter 20, this is the best thing you could say ever. He says, reputation is based solely on customer experience. What does that mean? What do you think it means? Even Jeff Bezos says this today, 300 years later. Your reputation is solely dependent on customer experience. Now, What is a customer experience? It's not when somebody buys your product, when they see you outside, when they see your YouTube channel, when they hear about you from a friend. You need to have a full A to Z client acquisition method that has prestigious customer service. They need to have a good product. He says excessive decor provides a higher interpretation of goods. And he says do not sell a fancy facade, but high quality products. That is also implied. Chapter 21. It is laudable to balance your accounts of stock and profits at least once a quarter. If you do not know how broke you are, you should be ashamed. All tradesmen needs to know their goods in the store, their sales abroad, and their money in the shop. You should be in physical and mental pain to see your credits and debits go unsettled. You should be physically recoiling. You should be like this individual with bespectacled glasses. You should be a geek when it comes to doing your bookkeeping, because if not, one day you're gonna wake up, oh, I'm missing $10,000 and I need a loan. Or otherwise I'm getting touched by Tyrone. You know, like you need to get this in order. A tradesman's books must be like a Christian's conscience. It should be clean and clear. And then basic stuff like do your taxes. Never sit down satisfied if there's an error in your books. When you are trusting people with your money, if something doesn't add up, someone is stealing from you. Next, chapter 22, wives in business. Prior, he says, it is terrible. It is terrible for your woman to be above the things that keep her alive. What does that mean? If your woman is driving the 1700s equivalent of a Bugatti, wearing a 1700s equivalent of a Patek Philippe, she needs to know the broad overview of your business. She needs to know exactly how much you're really making. She needs to know that she's replaceable, but she also needs to know that everything you do is keeping her lifestyle in order. It's a blizzard outside. Oh my goodness. Women should not act foolishly, and they need to learn the basics of business, because when you die, if you randomly die, it's going to be it for your bloodline. She needs to be able to at least teach your children the basics. He says that. Do not allow your woman to be a gentle woman, but do not allow her to ever govern your business, is what he says. 23. Credit is important. Credit makes war. Credit makes peace. Credit makes love. But credit also makes you feel very sad. You need to understand credit. Today, it's so easy to get credit. You can get $100,000. If you're poor, get credit because it's probably going to be helpful. He says that. Honestly, it's so easy to make money. You don't need credit. But he says you need credit. And he says you need to be hardworking and honest to sustain credits, like obviously. And chapter 24 and 25, he talks about English stocks and bonds and promissory notes and credit. It's honestly not relevant for today at all. Moral of the story is, this was what you needed to do 300 years ago. You needed to take care of all of these things. Now, if you lock in, if you figure out one thing, you could be doing SEO for businesses. You can be doing drop shipping. You could be doing social media. You could be like a really good aquarium salesperson. You just have to lock in. Honestly, 3 years is all it takes to make at least $28,000 per month. That's to be in the top 5% of Americans. And also, don't do cocaine. He didn't say that, but I'm just saying, like, generally, you should not do that. It's not good for you. And yeah, don't yourself.